Hello, everyone. This is Crypto and Cocktails, the official tensevencapital podcast. My name, as always, is Tyler. This is our man of the hour,
Tim Nigel.
Now, today we're going to be discussing primarily the Bitcoin 2025 conference. For those who are in the know, we sent a delegation, as it were, to the Bitcoin 2025 conference in Las Vegas. It was amazing. We're going to talk all about it today. Before we do that, though, why don't we get into this week's cocktail, shall we?
Shall we? We shall.
So this is what we're calling the Low-Carb Spritz. It's got some prosecco, it's got some vodka, it's got some soda, got some citrus garnish there. But overall, this is a very summery drink for a very summery time.
Interesting.
Let's give this a go. Cheers.
Salute.
I actually like this.
No, that's really good.
I didn't think I would like it as much as I did.
Sometimes we surprise ourselves. It should be orange for today's episode, though. All good.
Yeah, that's for the next one. There's going to be plenty of orange. Well, we're going to be talking about plenty of orange-related stuff today, aren't we?
Yes, and we're not talking about the guy with orange hair. Although he might come up a little bit.
Well, one of his guys was there, but...
Right. J.D. Vance was there, and his two sons were there.
His two sons were there?
Yeah, Eric and Don Jr.
Oh, I thought you meant J.D. Vance. Did J.D. Vance have two sons? When did this happen?
I didn't realize J.D. Vance wasn't in politics until, 2022.
Yeah. No, he's very new to it.
Yeah, as they all are, because our system's broken, and that's why we have Bitcoin.
I mean, both parties, if you think about it, if you've been looking at the registries recently, who's coming in, both parties are, it's really a new generation coming in on all fronts.
Yeah, I think it's business people taking over now, and we need business people from the private sector to fix the public sector, because it's run absolutely rampant for 40 years, but we can get into that.
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to be talking about that today. So I wanted to kind of do this in a play-by-play. Obviously, the conference divided itself, in between days. I wanted to just kind of ask you, what were sort of your takeaways on each day, who you may have met, what happened on each day.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first day, very big day. That one was Industry Day, right?
It was Industry Day. Because of travels and family commitments, we didn't get there for the entire thing. Definitely will be at Industry Day next year. Because for us, it's an opportunity to network with like-minded people from a business perspective, entrepreneurs, that type of thing. So you have your Industry Day, which is really the professionals in the Bitcoin world, and then you have the two general days back-to-back on days 2 and 3 that are for general admission. And this year, I think they said there were 35,000 people at this conference. I think the largest conference I've been at is in our world in finance and wealth management is Schwab Impact. I believe we topped out one year there at 12, maybe 15,000.
Nuts.
Bitcoin puts the Schwab conference to shame.
Absolutely nuts.
Well, and so the cool thing about Industry Day is you get to talk with everybody about what you're focusing on, right? And we're coming out of 4 years of absolute nonsense. Everyone thinks they live in the free country. I'm sorry, we don't. At least we haven't. Because anybody that knows anything in this industry knows that the entire financial system has been being weaponized by people in Washington, D.C. for a long time. And, good, bad, or different, I don't really do politics. I don't care. But at the end of the day, this is a constitutional republic, and the people say what goes, not vice versa.
And it's not just us. All over the world, different systems and different cultures, Bitcoin is uniting everyone.
Yes. Bitcoin,
much more than a reserve currency ever could.
Yeah, Bitcoin is definitely changing the landscape of the world. and it's really incredible to watch it, right?
So what did you?
The biggest thing about the industry day is the conversation is heavily focused on Bitcoin as a treasury asset, right? So what's a treasury asset? Well, at 10-7 Capital, I have cash on hand, let's say. That's my treasury fund, backup for savings, investments, things like that. Traditionally, as a company, you would carry cash, short-term liquid instruments like money market CDs, treasury bonds. You could even use some of the ETFs that are out there. But just cash on hand, should you need to tap into it, you have access to it. And, it's meant to be safe and secure, but at the same time, earn enough money so you're keeping up with the cost of doing business and the changes year in and year out. We're in the world now where that doesn't work anymore. And so now we're talking about how Bitcoin is becoming a treasury asset for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's large businesses, mid-sized, small, entrepreneurial, even family, like from a family office perspective at the core of the treasury and the holdings now, it's where Bitcoin is a key component alongside, like, love Bitcoin, not the only one though, so I don't believe you have to draw a line in the sand.
Sure.
There's enough for everybody to play. And we're not talking about the 50,000 quote-unquote shit coins that are out there that are, there's some weeding that needs to be done, and hopefully we get some regulation there, but...
The memeiest of the meme coins?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about legitimate protocols and networks that have use case, and they help people, do what they want to do, and then they have applications on the blockchain.
So what would you say is the general takeaway of Industry Day, if you had to nail it? I mean, obviously you mentioned, Bitcoin really being a treasury asset. Would you say that's the general takeaway? Is there anything else that really stuck with you?
On top of it being a treasury asset that everyone should have, Bitcoin's definitely here. It's not going anywhere, and it is going to change every facet of everyone's life. That's just what this technology does. It's not just here in the States, it's across the world. It's way more powerful than I initially thought going in.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to that, because I think that's definitely one of the general takeaways, at least from this year, from everything I saw, everything we saw. Obviously, I did want to ask, before we get into day two, I should ask, what were the facilities like? Obviously, we're, in the Venetian, which is my favorite hotel in Las Vegas. I love it so much because I've been to
a free night.
Well, because I've been to Venice, so it's like it's that little piece of Italy in America, I mean, obviously there's Little Italy, but that's like American Italy. I'm talking like Italy. It's like, there's the gondola rides, there's the beautiful Italian restaurants, it's painted, the sky is, the top of the room is painted like it's the sky. It's so realistic. They do it so well. I mean, Vegas is just another, there are levels above.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I didn't do the gondola ride, and I ate sushi.
You didn't do the gondola ride in the Venetian, and you ate sushi in the Venetian.
I did.
Please insult this man in the comments. Please ruin him.
Sushi was fantastic.
I don't care. You ate sushi in the Venetian. Who are you?
It's a great sushi spot.
I'm coming next year. I'm coming next year.
Take it, baby.
Yeah, I'm coming next year. We're gonna fix that. But no, I mean, let's talk about day two. So obviously this was the first general day. Was this when JD Vance was speaking?
Day two started off with, basically JD Vance was first to stage. Well, obviously they had an introduction and a kickoff. And I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, I don't think of politics and doesn't hit my radar. But he was a really, really good speaker. I actually was I was impressed, right? Like I spent a lot of my life speaking in front of large audiences. And he had a very, very, very powerful message to everybody there. And he basically talked about, like, listen, they're in office because of a big part of because of the Bitcoin and crypto community. Because we all stood up and said, we're done with this nonsense. Like, you can't tell us what to do. We're innovators. We're creators. We're creating a better world because the last 3 generations have not done that here. They haven't created a better world for the next generations coming after us. And I'm sorry, but thinking and living in the old Jimmy Carter days where we're, like in the Miracle movie, we're not optimistic that, the tomorrow's going to be better than today. Well, now we have an entire generation of people, especially a lot of us in Gen X, are like, no, man, we're changing this now. And it's time for change.
So you're not that political?
No, I'm not political. I'm more of a humanitarian, if you will.
No, but it is undeniable. I mean, wherever you stand, it is undeniable that there is one side that is much more friendly to the crypto community, and that was reflected in the polls.
And you know what? And everybody deserved what they got. And you have to understand, too, like, I don't talk politics with people because 90% of people have no clue what they're talking about. We live in a democracy. No, I'm sorry, we don't. It's a constitutional republic.
We live in a society.
Yeah, and a democracy is socialism under a different disguise. The Founding Fathers knew this. They didn't like democracy. It's not 51% rules and 49 doesn't. It's, even if you have 99% of the people want to do something, go for it, but you can't tell the last 1% what to do. It's, freedom of religion, speech, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we're founded on. And those core principles feed into the entire Bitcoin community. And the wildest thing is when you're like at the conference, because it is people from every facet of life. Like, you go to a financial conference, it's the same 10 people in the same suit, wearing blue suits, white shirts, and brown shoes. Like, that's the wardrobe. Not here, man. I talked with a farmer who was farming, he farms coffee beans in El Salvador. He used to live in Seattle. What they're doing in El Salvador is incredible.
I was going to say, no wonder he's at the Bitcoin conference if he's working in El Salvador.
Right, and they have changed the country. They have turned El Salvador around. And now that's feeding into Panama, to where the mayor of Panama City is working with Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert, I think her last name is?
Yeah.
On ideas on how to use Bitcoin to expand in Panama.
There was another mayor from another city who was also there. You want to talk about him?
We'll talk about Mayor Adams as well. So the whole thing is, in Panama City, he's like, hey, if you want to, go through Panama Canal, you have to pay a fee to go through it. We want to establish a Bitcoin treasury, and let's say hypothetically that if you pay me in Bitcoin, you happen to get your cargo shipped through the channel.
Oh, that's huge.
Bitcoin is going to touch every facet of every industry, of every way of life across the world. And then when you go and you see, it's just a wild collection of people, because you have mathematicians, you have scientists, you have financial people, you have energy people, you have education. Like, they have an entire section for children. It's every walk of every facet of life. And then, like, I was talking with a friend of mine this morning, right? And she helps women, empower themselves. And we work with most of our clients are women, right? Mm-hmm. And we're helping them build their own wealth and become their own, basically, power source when it comes to money and finance. This hasn't been the case for a long time. There are more women working in this industry than any other industry I've seen. And it's very decentralized, it's very open, and there's just this underlying root within the community that there is a reason that everybody is doing this. Mm-hmm. And it's to change the way finance and economy works in the world, and it's to make it more decentralized, more open, and more peer-to-peer. And part of day one was, and I didn't realize this until, we were sitting in the audience when Eric Trump and Donald Jr. were on stage for their panel. They're pissed. And they should be pissed. Because when they got into politics, which they weren't into politics, as they'll tell you, They were big business builders in New York City. And then the banks came in and cut them off from their money. So then you have 700 employees at a hotel that are not getting paid.
So it's not...
Are you serious? What country are we in right now?
So it's not just affecting... So when they do these types of things, it's not just affecting business people, but it's affecting everyday workers as well.
Bingo. And you can tell when someone's on stage, if you know how to read people. You can see really their feelings behind everything.
I watch wrestling. Trust me, I know that back to front.
Man, you cannot slide wrestling in every time.
Everything is wrestling.
But you could tell, like, they're visibly pissed. And I would be too. Because we've gotten away from the core fundamentals, and now millions and millions of billions of people are waking up to this. And this technology is now going to play a major role in the entire world. Look at it. China, US, Russia, they're all rushing to adoption, right?
Mm-hmm.
The United States debt crisis is not going to get better. You look at the bill they're putting through Congress, it's still the same spending bill because you can't have anyone in the House and Senate act responsibly, because if they did, they would be out of a job. And they're all making millions of dollars. So they're not going to give up the cush life. They're not. They're just going to collect money, get rich, eat steak, and drink expensive wine. And they're doing it at the, expense of every single person here.
The funny thing is, I remember seeing, like, it's so desensitizing sometimes, seeing, like, just going back to what you said about, like, not being political. It's so desensitizing sometimes seeing, like, people on one side be like, literally defending politicians acting like this when, when they're being attacked, and then the other side does the exact same thing. Meanwhile, I think, 87% of Americans don't trust Congress.
Right. And so why are you still voting for them? Every single person should not vote Democrat or Republican. You should vote for anybody in the community other than those people. Write in a vote. Get them all out. What? I do it.
No, that's a good point.
I vote. I don't vote for any of them. I write in other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reality. And I think it was Thomas Jefferson said, people aren't going to pay. The founding fathers were worried about money printing. And this is back in the 1800s. When the people realized that they could print money, all hell is basically going to break loose, and no one's going to care until their children end up in the street. Well, guess what? Children are now going to end up in the street. Right?
Yeah, I mean, my generation is going nuts about this. It's like, literally just earlier today, I was going out to do some shopping, and I overheard one of the cashiers talking to another one of the cashiers, and they were like, yeah, my rent is overdue, the landlord is talking to me about so-and-so, and I'm just thinking about, it's so telling that my first thought was not, oh my God, that's horrible. My first thought was, she has an apartment?
Yeah, and it's getting to the point where J.D. Vance's message, I guess Vice President Vance, my apologies if that came off disrespectful, is...
Classy.
You took a step in getting this agenda out there. Now take the next step and continue. So at the state level, if your politicians aren't getting onto the crypto train, tell them they're out. At the local level, you're out. At every single level of government now, get these people out. Because we have to get people that are going to be for the people, by the people, and finally have, what we should have here. And the only thing that Bitcoin is doing is exposing all of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know where this technology came from. I just know that when I saw its power and capability, it just hit me. And it hits the core of you. And you understand why it's not just Bitcoin, it's digital assets and crypto. We all know is the next wave. And yes, it could go into a utopia, or it could go into total totalitarian rule. Not that it can ever get there. Can't happen. It's impossible. And for humans that don't understand that, that's just mind-numbing for me. But the whole point of it is, it's like a friend of mine said when we were golfing a few weeks ago in Florida, and he shared something his friend said. He said, listen, it's here, it's coming, we have AI, we have robotics, we have technology, and in 30 years we're all going to be sitting around the campfire together. We just don't know if we're going to be in complete utopia because the machines are doing the work for us and doing the heavy lifting, or we're going to be hiding from these things.
Or we're going to be in the Matrix.
Yeah, so I think we already are. But no, like, it was, like, day 2 was there was a very powerful message that came out of there. I can't remember if there's a gentleman who's running for Prime Minister of England. He was the one that worked.
What party?
I forgot his name. Nigel?
Nigel Farage was there?
Yes, that's him.
He's the number 2 guy. He was a dark horse, and now he's the number 2 guy.
He got Brexit done without being in politics.
Because what happened was the people who were in power in the UK for over like almost 15 years, they just totally shat the bed, and people were so angry they kicked them out. And that wasn't even like a political thing, because that was like, I think the opposition got like 475 seats to 121. Like, it wasn't even close. It was a landslide. Yeah. And then what happened is that new government then immediately shat the bed, and now they're extremely unpopular. And so this guy Nigel is coming in, and his whole goal basically is, because he's right now, I think he's either number 1 or number 2 in popularity, his party.
Yeah.
But it's a new party. It doesn't have any of the infrastructure of the other 2 parties. It doesn't have that machine. And so his goal is basically, because the way it works in the UK is it's 1 person, 1 seat, most votes wins. It's extremely basic. It's the oldest democracy in the West. And so his goal is like, all right, how do I get people in every single seat to match the popularity that's going to get me into office? That's what he's working on.
Yes, and he put Bitcoin on the agenda.
That's big.
So Bitcoin is on the agenda. They're talking about having it at the Bank of England, and he's going to reverse the conversation on that as well. And again, it's just another example of this is happening, and man, you better get on this train, or just you're
just behind.
Yeah, you're not going to like where you're going to be.
So I think that then is probably the general takeaway for day 2. Like, day 1 was more about the minutia, and then day 2 was vibes based. It was like really hammering in like, oh, we are at mainstream acceptance. It's happening. It's breaking the ceiling. We are here.
Right.
That was the general takeaway for day 2, you'd say?
Right. And anyone that's been doing this for any length of time knows that the last 4 or 5 years have been extremely challenging. They've been exhausting. I was talking with a person that I was referred to through a friend, and it's kind of like commonality, like things you do business and network together. She burned out on crypto. It was hard for her, and she's still into it herself, but not involved as heavily with other people.
Sure.
Because honestly, like, you have traditional wealth management can age you, but crypto ages you 20 times more than traditional finance does. And so you move into day 3, and it's just a continuation. It's a continuation of the energy. They keep everyone involved. The thing I like the most is a lot of the topics and speakers, you get 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe 40. So you're constantly having new people and new content. Mm-hmm. And it was more along the lines of talking about Bitcoin as a treasury, how to leverage it as a capital asset, how now to use it to purchase other capital assets, how people are selling their capital assets and then buying into Bitcoin. Like, people are selling real estate and buying more Bitcoin, because when you do your homework and you look as Lynn Alden, who is one of the top economic minds in the crypto space, mm-hmm. and she's insanely intelligent. And the train has left the station, man. The U.S. is toast. The only out the U.S. has is to buy Bitcoin and have a sovereign wealth fund and to unleash capital that we've been hiding for years. Otherwise, we're bankrupt. The U.S. is bankrupt. It's that simple. And you're not going to get any semblance of responsibility and accountability, like I said, because the system's broken. So you're now at the point where, as Led Zeppelin says, if it keeps on raining, the levee's going to break. Well, guess what? The levee broke.
So that was really the cornerstone of day two's
Day
message.
two was all about treasuries and how to leverage Bitcoin as a capital asset.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that Bitcoin is going to appreciate in value, and 5 years down the road it'll be worth whatever.
Yeah.
In terms of U.S. dollars, there's still a massive point of view shift because pay attention to the tokenization of assets, because BlackRock's leading the charge. Every asset goes on the blockchain. Every asset's priced in Bitcoin. It's not priced in dollars.
So BlackRock was there too, huh?
Oh, they're everywhere.
Did you see any of your old pals?
No, I didn't actually. I don't know that a lot of my friends are even still there.
Really?
Yeah, it's hard, man. You work at a company that size for that long. I mean, it's a 24/7 position.
Sure.
You're always on the phone. You're always available, no matter where you are in the world.
And if you don't, you're behind.
Yeah, if you can't put your phone down. But you're like, whatever, man. I'm at BlackRock, right?
Yeah.
So again, it was just another wave of just talking about, okay, and this is where Jack Mullers, who's the CEO of Strike, I mean, this 31-year-old knows more about economics and finance than most adults, right? And he's running Strike. It's a Bitcoin company. So
Well, hold on. 31 years old. He's an adult.
Yeah, I guess.
Did you just expose yourself as being old?
Probably. But the thing is, it's like they came up with a solution and system. So one of the problems in the crypto space is, and we ran into this with the FTX and the Celsius debacles, that the problem was when you went to stake, and it's like basically you're like when you go to a bank and you loan your money to a bank in a CD and you get paid interest on it, right? Staking's the same concept, except you're loaning your digital assets back to the network and you're getting paid to stake, you're getting paid interest, then you take the interest and buy more Bitcoin or crypto, whatever. So what firms were not doing is they were not disclosing that your crypto was getting sent to another firm. And when FTX blew up and Celsius blew up, everyone went, wait, where's my crypto? And they're like, well, it was over here when it wasn't here.
How many laws were broken in that?
Not really laws broken, because it also is something that does happen in traditional finance.
Oh.
It's more of a read the fine print, but in the fine print it should be disclosed, and it wasn't.
Okay.
That's the problem. It was a non-disclosure problem. So long story short, they've come up with a system where you can lend out or you can use your Bitcoin as collateral for a loan. So let's say I want to go buy a house and I have 5 Bitcoin, for example, right? Worth $500,000. Well, I can get a $250,000 loan at set interest rate, and I can keep my Bitcoin. I take the cash, I could put a down payment on a house, buy a condo, whatever. And it's a way to leverage your capital assets, right? It's what wealthy people, entrepreneurs do. So they have created a system where not only do you have the opportunity to do this, but you don't, as they would say, hypothesize your Bitcoin. So basically your Bitcoin stays in your wallet, it doesn't go anywhere. And the partners that extend the lending and financing, they have a view into your crypto wallet just to verify and validate that the crypto's there.
Mm-hmm.
Safe for both parties. So this is the beginning of what I think is the next wave of, for people that are in the space and especially have Bitcoin, and as the price will appreciate relative to the value of the dollar, you're now going to have the opportunity to use it like a line of credit. You still hold your asset as collateral, and then will allow you to do other investment opportunities.
Sounds like day 2 is probably the biggest.
I mean, it's a whirlwind. It's long.
So dare I ask what happened on day 3?
Well, day 3 was the end, and well, day 1 was industry day. Day 2, was general, and day 3 was the treasury focus.
Okay, so that's primarily so they talked about.
Yeah, and then you had at the end of day 3. So the last 2 presentations were interesting.
Okay.
Michael Saylor's 21 Ways to Wealth.
The great Michael Saylor.
Yeah. That was an interesting presentation.
Saved the best for last.
You can just go to Bitcoin Magazine's channel on YouTube, and they have all the presentations there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had Russ Ulbricht, who was the inventor of the Silk Road.
They had Ross Ulbricht?
Yeah, he closed it out.
Very nice.
Right, and he was the one, basically, he creates the Silk Road. The governments decide that he's basically a criminal, and they lock him up for 10, 11 years.
Yep. And then just this year they freed him.
Yeah, so...
Which was due to, due to not only big community outcry, but specifically outcry from the crypto community. Because Silk Road was one of the first websites that pioneered crypto as a medium of exchange.
I kind of feel like it resonates. It reminds me of Napster. I don't think Napster was originally created to pirate music. It just became the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, because the market is going to do what the market's going to do.
Right, like...
Basic Smith.
Can't be responsible for other people. So, it is what it is. Luckily for him, and good for him that he's out, he's free. And, yeah, he closed it out. So it was like...
That's almost poetic.
Yeah, and then after the next day, I visited family in Nevada.
Yeah, so the rest of it was just basically vacation.
Not even. I mean, it was just recharging. So, visiting family, getting some sunshine. I played golf, which was interesting. I played with an advisor. And, you get the subtle cracks from advisors that, Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's fine, man. You're out of business in 3 years. Like...
At what point are you going to...
If you're listening to this as a financial advisor, don't worry. You won't have to fire your advisor. Your children are going to do that for you. That's what's going to happen over this.
At what point are you going to tell the advisors you golf with this? Like, get on the train or you're fired?
I don't, because most advisors are not advisors. They're just selling product.
That is true, and we did mention that in a previous episode.
Right. They're not... Like... Zero awareness around even blockchain technology.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you're walking around in these Bitcoin shoes. He's been. Oh my god!
I got these shoes at the Bitcoin conference in 2022. I won them. I've never worn them until today.
Oh, so you didn't even wear them at the conference?
No.
You got to wear them next year. Yeah, you got to show those off. No, but you have to wear those next year, because next year, imagine...
I don't want to get them dirty.
I mean, so what are these collector's items?
I kind of feel like they are.
Then why are you wearing them? You're depreciating their value.
I'm just doing it for the video, then they go back in the box.
Okay, I see how it is.
It's kind of like the one time where you get the Wayne Gretzky rookie card, and you take a look at it, and then you slide it in the plastic, and you never pull it out of the plastic again.
Yeah, exactly. Or like more recently with what Topps has been doing with WWE, like you get the wrestlers sign the cards, and they have like different phrases, like the really like obscure Kevin Owens ones where he signs each different cards, and one is like "Don't bother me at the airport," and one is like, the bloodline isn't really related.
Yeah,
and he writes, awesome. It's like one person has each different one.
Yeah.
I will keep bringing things back to wrestling, because there is going to be at some point an episode in which we make it very clear, everything is wrestling. Everything is wrestling. Everything is showmanship. Everything is a story. Everything is wrestling. Wrestling is a microcosm of the society in which we live.
Yeah.
That will be an episode. So stay tuned for that. That's happening.
Who's going to be on that one?
Both of us. I will drag you onto that one.
I mean, I'll sit there. Who are you going to get from a wrestling perspective to be on it?
I'll figure it out.
All right, fantastic.
But, no, so I think then, from what you're saying, day 3, the takeaway was, I mean, it wasn't so much of a day in which there were takeaways, but more of sort of supplementary and recharge from day 2. Day 2 was really the big one, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's become very apparent to me, having been going to this conference from the beginning, that the more Bitcoin, and here's the other thing too, like, over this last 2-week period, I've really gotten in tune with being able to leverage AI and communicate with AI. Okay, so you want a little party trick here. Here's kind of like what your future looks like and the monetary system of the world looks like. You're going to have the US dollar used by most Western countries, which is basically backed or aligned with Bitcoin, right? You're going to have the BRICS nations, which will have some sort of like digital yuan, which is the Chinese currency, and BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia.
South Africa.
Or sorry, South Africa.
Although Saudi Arabia, I think Saudi Arabia and a couple other countries did join. No, they did join. Like, I know the UAE is joined.
Yeah.
A bunch of Middle Eastern countries joined.
Right.
There are more people. Like, it's basically, you have the US, like the West, where it's like all these developed countries, and then you have the emerging economies.
Right. So if you look at those emerging economies, let's say they primarily trade in the digital yuan, that's going to be backed by gold. So you got to have, this is going to happen by the year 2030, by the way, if you're listening out there. So then you have US dollar Bitcoin, digital yuan gold. Guess who lays in the center of all that? XRP ties it all together.
That is something that I think we should definitely, if not this episode, I think, well, and the
XRP conference was in Las Vegas the weekend after Bitcoin.
I know, it's so amazing. No, but I do want to, I think at some point we have to talk about in detail XRP, what it is, how it factors in. I know we've mentioned it in content in the past. It is so pivotal to this whole thing, because that is the platform, as you just said, that this is going to all run off of.
Yeah, and I think
that's what's emerged.
It's going to be the rail system for financial institutions across the world to transact business. And it is insanely fast. It's insanely cheap. And it just, again, it's like, get on the train. The industrial world is over. Cash is going away. I mean, I just got this Apple Watch, and it's incredible the things you can do on technology.
Well, the Apple Watch isn't exactly new.
For me, it is.
Get on the train.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm late myself. But the whole thing is, again, you have it, it's out there, it's mainstream media, it's talked about every single day now. What makes you think this is going away? And every single person that presented at that conference said, Bitcoin is digital gold. And what I tell people is, the next generations of younger people, their God is code. It's not religion, it's not government, it's not anything else. It's technology. And you're now seeing an entire shift of wealth go from the older generations down to the next generation, and they just have an entirely different sense about how life should be and how it should be lived. And everything that's traditionally been done, like I said, it's going away. And it's going away in a hurry.
So I think then that would probably be the best way to sum it up in general, is because obviously, the takeaways for, each day probably would be, Bitcoin's importance as a treasury asset, how it's breaking into the mainstream, who's behind it, stuff like that. But really, if you had to sum it up, that general takeaway would be, it's happening now, get on.
I would say there was a line shared at the conference, and it's called Be Humble, Stack Sats. So what's a sat? A sat is one Satoshi, and it is, one sat is the equivalent of 1/1,000,000th of a Bitcoin. 110, 50, $100 a week, whatever. You can't afford. It's like an insurance policy, right? Americans, here's the problem with Americans. We're the most underinsured people in the world. We don't believe anything's going to happen. And then when something does, it's absolutely catastrophic. Not just to yourself, but to your family and finances. It's the same thing. Like, you are insuring your purchasing power. And yeah, we're getting a temporary reprieve in some spots on inflation. But cost of living hasn't gone down really.
Nowhere in the world it's gone down.
And you have a system that in order to keep the game going, they have to print a lot more money and they have to devalue your dollar. So the only protection against this is digital assets and physical commodities.
Mm-hmm. And we'll obviously go into more detail in a lot of these subjects in the coming weeks. But obviously, considering, the Bitcoin conference just ended, we wanted to kind of do a little summary, explain, sort of what we saw, the impressions that we got, the takeaways. Obviously, big takeaway, you need to get on this.
You need to look at it, and you need to do your homework, and if you decide not to do it, that's fine, but I would rather err on the side of caution and have some versus miss out and not have any.
Yep. But yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it off today. I think that's where we'll leave it off. As always, I'm Tyler. This is our man of the previous half hour.
Tim Nihill, not financial advice, all education, but still, do your homework.
It's a hell of an education.
For sure.
But yeah, this has been Crypto and Cocktails. We hope to catch you next week, and for all future episodes, stay tuned, stay cool.
Cool. Cheers.